This video is made on example of 2012 Volkswagen Sharan with the classic McPherson suspension, which is very common among all cars. We have a one strut with a spring, and then at the bottom we have one control arm, which is this one, also known as a wishbone because it looks like a wishbone. And obviously we get steering rod, anti-roll bar with the link, anti-roll bar link, and then we get the obviously drive shaft that drives our wheel. So this video will show you how to replace bushes on front suspension. Most of Volkswagen, Skodas, they might differ with the new generations, but the principle is very similar. This is what our control arm looks from the bottom. It has two bushes. One is at the front, which is smaller one. It doesn't get affected that much, that's why it's so small. It's held by single bolts that going through. And then on the back we have this unit here, which is held on 3 bolts, and a big bush which gets more heat, and that's why it's bigger, and it comes as a separate unit, which is pretty cool. Then on the wheel side we have a ball joint. Name speaks for itself. It's a ball joint, which is a form of a ball behind that rubber, and it allows our wheel to turn and go up and down, and it's held by 3 nuts to the suspension arm, also known as a control arm. In some cars it's held by rivets, which is a pain on the bottom, or even in some cars ball joint is a part of the arm, so if ball joint is affected then or is damaged, you have to replace the whole arm. Luckily in Volkswagen we don't need to replace the whole arm, which is a piece of metal and nothing is wrong with it. We just replace its components. So I'm gonna take this arm out now to give you a better view and show you the bushes, because this video is dedicated to the bushes and how to replace them. First I'm gonna take this plastic cover off, few torque screws around, just take it off, pretty easy, and just to get access to this bolt because it's on that side head of the bolt. So with undercover off, 3 bigger screws at the back, T45 on this car, and then some smaller ones all around. You take it off and then we go back to our suspension arm. I'm gonna start with removing these 3 nuts. They are 16 millimeters. Then we have 2 16mm bolts on this unit at the back, 118, 216. You don't have to use power tool, obviously, it's pretty easy done by hand tools. I just want to make this process faster. So 18mm bolt for the front bush. Just take it out. And the last one on the rear bush. And that's it. Now we can take the suspension and wiggle it out and leave the ball joint with the wheel. We don't need it. So these are 2 bushes, front and back. So this is our suspension arm, front bush, rear bush. Rear bush, as I mentioned before, comes as a separate unit. What you can do with a bit of wiggling, you can take it off. You can buy it as a separate unit. It's not that expensive. If you want to go hardcore, of course, you can get the inlet like this, and then you can take it out and push new one in. It sits pretty tight, so you need a special tool. I'm gonna show you a tool in a minute, but in general you can just get one of these and just push it back in again. Simple. Now we're gonna replace the rear front bush, which also sits pretty tight, and we're gonna use special tool for it. So this is how we're gonna remove this bush. I've just cut off a little piece of rubber because it was dislocated a little bit, so it was not giving the edge of the metal here. Then I made few cuts on this side. I can show you what the replacement bush is. It looks like this. So I think it should go in pretty easy, relatively, with the help of our tool. But to come out, I just decided to make it a bit easier. So this is the tool. I have a link in description to this tool. It's a set of cups like this and a few different diameter threaded rods. So what you can do, you can find the correct diameter so it sticks here properly, and then we start turning 27mm nut for this bush to get through. Easy peasy. And every cup has a little window here so you can see what's going on inside. Shouldn't be that difficult, it's only rubber getting through. Then the other side nut started turning, so I'm using spanner to counter hold. So finally it's nearly all out. I think I can even finish it by hand. I can see it coming out. There you go. So this is our bush. That doesn't look very happy. So I've used a bit of grease here so it goes nice and smooth. Because of a limited space, and that's why lots of garages don't want to get involved with this particular arms, I've turned this nut upside down. There's no chance to put any of these caps, but I think I have enough thread going through all this threaded bit inside, so the rod is actually sticking out of here. I'm going to counter hold with this 27mm spanner, and we start slowly but surely starting to press this bush into the suspension. Mind your fingers. It's nearly in. Looks like all this stuff that's here, possibly it's also kind of the lubrication. So maybe you don't need to use grease, because you need to be careful with greases. Some of them can be really not good for the rubber. Started going easier. That means we're nearly through. There we go. Looks like it's out. Now we're gonna just release this pressure. Here we go, new bush is properly in. This is a pretty good tool to work on all sorts of bushes and bearings. Normally you will use different caps, one is bigger diameter, one smaller diameter on both sides, like on bigger bushes or bearings. I've used just a nut because that bush was really too small, so I couldn't have anything that small diameter. But don't try to push big rubber bush with just a nut, so use the correct diameter cap. Now with the new bush we can put this back on. And then we put suspension arm back to its place. My advice to you, start everything manually, all bolts and nuts, so you know you don't damage the thread. You can give for on bush a few taps with a hammer to get it in the place. When you keep it nice and happy, as you can see, it goes pretty easy by hand. Same as the bolts for the rear bush. You just align it with the hole and then you start it by hand. And that's it. Put your bolts, nuts back on. More stuff about Volkswagens, Audis, especially other cars, if it goes well, see my website wilsonmotors.com. Thanks for watching.